Caw Cast fans, Hawks fans, people that could stand to listen to me for hours on end. We are back. We're back with another episode. The season's over with, but hey, we had the draft. Thank you guys for the turnout for those of you that listen to our live feed and ask the questions with the Hawks Reddit. So very much appreciate it. Had a ton of fun doing it. So today I'm just going to go over a little bit of what in the world happened that Thursday night. Pretty much everything's kind of happened real quick, but joining with me today, the man, you know him. You better follow him on Twitter. One of the great guys to follow while the game is on, because he's always giving us the little behind the scenes stuff, what's happening on the bench, and can tell us the latest in Harry Hawksdom. Brad Rowland. Brad, what's happening, man?
Nothing much, man. As you mentioned, it's been a crazy week, but I'm ready to go always, and lots to come as well, because it's gonna be a busy couple more weeks too.
Oh yeah. So Brad, this might be the first time you've been on with us, I think, or at least
It's been a while. I
year.
think it's definitely been a long time.
Been a while. Okay, well, welcome back to our. We kind of put you in the celebrity hot seat for us,
which is absurd, but that's fine.
Yes. Put you in a celebrity hot seat. We've had a couple of guys with us, so welcome to Caw Cast Studios, as our joke goes. But Brad, man, let's start with why my heart is hurting right now. Just a quick eulogy to the man that put in his service of 7 years, coming out of the 19th pick in the draft from Wake Forest. Jeff Teague, he is no longer a Hawk. I don't know how to feel. Do you have any positives to say about this? I appreciate Jeff for what he's done for us.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not. It's been sort of a love-hate relationship between me and Jeff. I eventually came around on Jeff. I was not high on Jeff for the first probably 4 years. I want to say 4.5 years of his career.
Yeah,
in Atlanta, but I came around on Jeff, started defending Jeff, obviously right as he became a better player. His All-Star season is sort of the famous one now. 2014-2015 season when he was on the Eastern Conference All-Star team was his best year, and while that kind of came back a little bit last year, I think we might be able to blame a little bit that on the injuries that now Jeff has famously let the world know that he had. But no, I think Jeff was quite productive. You mentioned he was the 19th pick. That's definitely the Hawks definitely got value out of that pick. You don't see a 7-year quality guy out of that selection always. So that was a big win. And there's stuff to be positive about moving forward. But I think that, as you mentioned, it's definitely Jeff deserves some recognition for everything that he did, and we try to bring a little bit of that after he got dealt, but in the midst of the madness of the draft and stuff, it kind of gets caught. I almost wish it had happened in a more dead period, so we could have, as properly eulogized the career of Jeff Teague in Atlanta. But it was fun at times and frustrating at times, and that's kind of how it is with most players, I'd say.
Yeah. I appreciate it from the way back when I had a shirt years ago when I was young, stupid, and in college that said "Free Jeff Teague." I remember walking next to him when he was running on the court, and I'm pretty sure he saw the shirt because he kind of looked at my shirt and then looked at me. So appreciate it, Jeff, for you not thinking I'm completely weird.
Jeff's kind of weird in himself.
Yeah.
As someone who's been around him a little bit in locker rooms and scrums and stuff, Jeff, I don't think he's a bad guy at all, but Jeff's kind of weird. So I think he probably appreciated that, to be honest. He's sort of an enigmatic guy. That's the word I've been using for him, is enigmatic. Big wrestling fan, big video game fan, doesn't really like to talk to the media. Just kind of a oddball.
I always found it funny with Jeff. One, I saw the picture of him at a I want to say like some wrestling event in Indianapolis, where he's from. But I want to say, man, the video games is just something odd to me, and it's just not odd, but just funny to me that, hey, this is a guy who, I don't mean this in a bad way for anyone that's listening, but whenever, of what I understand with Jeff, he doesn't love to talk about basketball outside of the game and the event. He just seems like a guy who happens to be good at basketball, takes advantage of it, but also just has his interest and other things that people my age would. So
I think part of that with Jeff is that, like, The look on his face is something where like people assume that he doesn't care. He's super laid back and kind of gives that vibe off like he doesn't care. I think that's not true. I think he was really competitive while he was here. It's just the way that he sort of looks and acts off the court. Maybe people might have thought that he wasn't the biggest competitor, but Jeff always gave effort, for better or worse. Like he was sometimes tentative, and that was frustrating, but he definitely tried and gave a crap about basketball. Much to the that might be not what people think about Jeff, but he definitely cared and was a competitor. So I want to say that for sure.
Yeah, I'm just saying that just because of I don't know what some things that I know people have thought or said, and you especially bring up the wrestling and you bring up video games and heck the fashion show he was part of on All-Star Weekend. I think I remember. But
that is accurate. Yes.
But something about Jeff I always appreciated. And this is something that's very undervalued when it comes to him. He is incredibly durable. He hasn't really had a big injury. And, this past year when he had the injury, he played through it. So he's an incredibly tough guy, incredibly durable. What else?
I mean, to that point, he played 70 or more games in every full season. The only year he didn't 70 was the year that there wasn't 70 games to play during the lockout shortened season. So that's definitely underrated, especially when you look around the league and see some of the better players regularly never getting to 70 games. I think of Anthony Davis, who's never gotten to 70 games in his career, and Jeff's played 70 or more in every season. So there's something to be said for that, for sure.
Yeah. And what else was I going to say about him? He improved every year. You make the All-Star team, especially kind of like at a position like point guard, and you know how deep that is in the NBA. It shows that you do give a crap about your craft. And also, what else about Jeff? And I had something on the tip of my brain, and I completely forgot about it. But thank you, Jeff, for your 7 years. And hey, Brad, we went and talked about it.
Shout out to Jeff Teague.
Yes, shout out. So, since we're talking about Jeff Teague, what did you think of the trade? And what we received for him? Do you think it was more than enough? Do you think it was fair? Do you think we got cheated? What do you think of it?
Yeah, I think it's important to separate the trade for Teague from the actual pick that the Hawks made at 12.
Go ahead.
From a value perspective, just because I'll say this, I kind of liked the trade. Knowing I kind of just went into this offseason thinking that Jeff was gone. It would have surprised me if the Hawks did not trade Jeff this offseason, just from everything that we've always heard about Dennis. The front office, Bud, they want to move on with Dennis. He's younger. He'll be a restricted free agent next year. Jeff was going to be unrestricted at the age of 29. It makes all the sense in the world that they would move on from Jeff. I think Jeff is better than Dennis right now as we speak, and there's a possibility that Dennis never gets to be as good as Jeff was. That's definitely in play and has to be said. But at the same time, I don't think Atlanta wanted to pay Jeff after next year what he was going to command. Even if he just has the same year next year that he did this year, he's going to make upwards of $20-25 million a year, and that's a lot of money. And because they invested a first rounder in Dennis, they like Dennis a lot, and I think Dennis wants to start. That's pretty obvious. Dennis wants to start. So moving on from Jeff was sort of a foregone conclusion, and with that, I think they got pretty good value. I didn't love this draft. But at the same time, you got a lottery pick, and that means 4 years of cheap control over a rookie in exchange for Jeff on a 1-year contract. So that's the nuts and bolts of it. Obviously, there were some Hawks fans that were disappointed in the return, whereas others were very excited. So it's a typical thing in that sense. But I generally liked it. It wasn't like a home run acquisition, but I think the Hawks got slightly the better end of the deal.
So about a couple months ago, Garrick and myself, and heck, we've had Bo on the pod and we had KL on the pod. We were talking about how there's a rumor from Kurt Helin. Take it as you want. But he said that Utah was willing to ship its number 12 pick for a point guard or a wing player. So this is something me and Garrick talked about extensively, saying, hey, we need that. And we said, Jeff is... How do we put it? You mentioned how Jeff is going to get paid, upwards to $20 million. We also kind of pointed out, we're only paying him $8 million, but the year before that was his rookie contract, and it's just kind of like Jeff is on a heck of a steal for the kind of productivity that we get from him. It kind of amazed me. I'm like, you know what? He's going to demand a lot. So I kind of thought it would take Jeff and the 21st pick to get the 12th pick. That's kind of what I don't know, theorize, because the opposing team that's going to get Jeff is going to realize he's on his final year of the contract. So me personally, I was kind of happy with it because I was expecting we'd have to give up a draft pick in addition to getting the 12. So
Yeah,
hey.
I'm with you. I think that people just kind of overlook the contract stuff. Jeff's 4-year contract that the Hawks matched after he signed an offer sheet with Milwaukee. People forget that even happened. Larry Drew tried to pry Jeff away.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but no, listen, like that was a huge value for the Hawks over 3 years, and it would have been 4 if they kept him. But that also means that Jeff's not really likely to take a discount with his next deal. I think he knows that he's been underpaid for the last 3 years, and it'll be 4 at the end of his contract. So any hometown discount stuff was not going to happen, which means the Hawks kind of had to make the choice between the point guards. We've been foreshadowing that for months now, that this is going to be the summer that they had to pick, and they picked Dennis, which is a defensible move. I think Jeff's better than Dennis, but at the same time, they have Dennis under control. They can match any offer on Dennis next year, and he's so young, man. He'll be playing at 23 this year, so there's a lot of upside there.
The thing I go back and look at with that is, I want to say in their perspective point of their careers, I think Dennis, because when did Jeff actually start? The season he was actually starting, was that his 4th season or his 3rd season? I think
it was his 4th year that he became a full-time starter. No, it was the 3rd year. Sorry, the lockout year was his first year as the full-time starter, 2011, 2012, and at the time, like I would argue, I think you might be ready to make this point now, but I think Dennis was probably better in year 3 than Jeff was in year 3, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. At their perspective point in their career, I think Dennis is better than where Jeff was.
And Jeff was a year older too.
In their age.
Yes.
Though I agree with you. With Jeff being better than Dennis, I just feel like I can't wait for that matchup in Indiana just to see how many times Jeff is going to go under on the screen for Dennis.
all of the time. It's an underrated thing that I thought about that too the other day. It was like, I can't wait to watch Jeff and Dennis play against each other.
Yeah,
just because of I think those guys get along well. Having been around them in the locker room a little bit, I don't think there's any animosity there. But Jeff, I'm sure Jeff knows that Dennis wants to start. Dennis is probably the most confident player in the history of the world. So it's one of those things where I think Jeff might be ready to give Dennis a little bit of something in a public forum when they play each other.
Some people are probably going to be surprised, like, where's his passion at? And I'm going to be like, do you remember that a couple of years ago when he got that technical for yelling at Ray Allen after a dunk? That probably scared him off. No, but it's going to be interesting. That matchup is going to be fun for me to watch. Anywho, so let us move on. A lot of Jeff Teague talk. This is my kind of podcast.
It has to be. Listen, this will be the last time, I bet. I mean, it's one of those things where until Dennis struggles next year and people are lamenting the loss of Jeff, until then we won't talk about it. And I have to say, I don't think it's controversial to say Jeff is better than Dennis. I know there are some factions of the fan base that just kind of want the new shiny thing, but Jeff, I know I get my information a lot of times from people that cover the league as a whole, and it would be kind of difficult to find anybody nationally who thinks that Dennis is better than Jeff right now. If you look around, like people in general, the opinion of Dennis nationally is not as high as it is in Atlanta. So it's one of those things where you're kind of giving up some safety here, and we might be hearing some of the people who wanted Dennis to start, missing Jeff quite a bit by November or December if things don't go well.
Oh boy,
you don't have to do that. I could say that so you don't get yelled at, Josh. I'll take it. It's fine.
Okay, no, man. I say a lot of things on here, so I appreciate you having my back there. You said a lot of people around the league's opinion on Dennis not being as high. I'm kind of like, well, I don't know. At times, I just want to, I don't know, run on the court and yell, Dennis, just calm down, relax. But I don't know.
That is fair. That's a fair thing to say to Dennis.
It's going to be interesting. I had a follower show me a picture of Dennis that time he was locked out of his car, and you know how he has that all gold Audi that he drives around in.
I've seen that a few times.
Somebody said to me a picture of him getting locked out of his car, saying, "This is our point guard for next year. God help us all."
And listen, like even if Dennis is the same as he's always been, this year in a bigger role, he's going to get paid a lot too. That's the thing that people aren't really talking about is that, you know, the Hawks have him under restricted rights, so they can match any offer. But if Dennis is even pretty good at his age, he's going to get a lot of money next year.
Yeah, he's really young and he still has room to improve. So, you know what? It was the right move. I will say this for the Hawks. It was the right move. Basically, Brad, of everything you mentioned, the contract issue, Jeff is going to want to actually get paid, especially when you see guys like, I don't know, that he's arguably better than getting a ton of money. Off the top of my head, like Reggie Jackson, what he's getting.
Just wait till you see what Jeremy Lin signs for the summer.
Oh, geez, yeah.
And Jeff Teague is quite a bit better than Jeremy Lin. And wait till you see Jeremy Lin sign for like 3 years and $50 million or something like that this summer. People are going to figure it out real quick when they see somebody. You know, next Friday is the first day of free agency. People are going to see some shocking numbers that they're not prepared for, and then just think about that. Think about these guys versus Jeff and what Jeff's going to sign for a year from now.
Very good point. Wow, very good. I didn't even think about that. Watching what Jeremy Lin's going to get. That's a good comparison for that. Anyway, so I liked the trade when it happened. I thought that we would have to give up a lot more for the number 12 pick. Realistically, that's what I thought we were going to have. We would probably settle for, because the Noel Nerlens trade, the more I heard about that, it seemed to me that it was too good to be true, that I didn't think that it would happen. Is that fair to think, or what did you think of that whole trade?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's one of those rumors that came from a credible source. It came from The Vertical, so I bought into the fact that it was at least leaked accurately. It came from good reporting, so I didn't want to crap on it in general, but it did seem to me like it was a bit of wishful thinking, especially with the leak that came out that included guys like Robert Covington and Nick Stauskas from Philly as well. You know, if it had been Teague for Noel, I would have been very happy with that return, and I wrote as much at the time. There were some Hawks fans that I don't think have seen Nerlens Noel play much, or that were overvaluing Teague, that were, you know, kind of upset with that rumor. But you know, around the league, I think everybody that I talked to outside of the Hawks window of things was kind of shocked that Philly would ever even consider doing that deal. So I would have loved it personally, but I also had that same thing that you were having, with some level of skepticism that was ever really a real thing.
Man, they could have got your boy Stauskas back, man.
I still believe in Nick Stauskas, but no, he would have been the throw, and I think Robert Covington would have been the dream. That's a guy.
Yeah.
3-and-D guy, super cheap, that would have been a nice looking Hawk in this fake world of that trade for sure.
Yeah, that was when they threw in Robert Covington. I was like, okay, this is working too perfectly for us. So we're gonna have. I was thinking like, okay, are we gonna have to throw in a draft pick or something?
I was thinking that same thing. That it only would have made sense if it was like Teague and 21 for whatever the rest of that stuff was, or Teague and next year's Minnesota pick, or whatever the whole thing was. It was going to be something bigger, but in the end, I think that was fool's gold, as you mentioned before.
All right. Okay, so, oh boy. So, man, moving on to the draft. The Hawks at the 12th pick, Hawks at the 21st pick. Guessing the Hawks, which is extremely hard to do if guys have been following this team the last few years. And I'm assuming everyone that listens to this podcast does. So thank you once again for listening. But I was assuming they would have moved up. And I was assuming they would have tried to target a team like the Kings at number 8, just because Sacramento was going to Sacramento. And oh boy, they did a trade during the draft. Maybe I missed. I don't know, but Brad, we kept our picks and we selected 2 players. I don't know if I should still have that feeling that they're still going to get traded or not. But boy, what did you think of our 2 picks that we made?
Yeah, on the trade thing, I was expecting them to get for the Hawks to move at least one of the picks, if not both. But I didn't think it would be for another pick. I thought they would be looking for a more established veteran talent. That's sort of been the MO of this front office since, especially since Danny Ferry left. Last year's Tim Hardaway trade, the most obvious example of that, where they moved a first round pick for what they'd termed to be a young veteran, a guy who'd played 2 years and was under contract already. But the bigger point is that they actually stuck around and made these 2 picks, as surprising as that was to me and others. But I like them both. I like both players. Taurean Prince at 12 was, some people thought that was kind of a reach, and I'm not opposed to that thinking. But at the same time, this was a draft that in the middle of that first round was really wide open. We saw some guys fall a long way from where they were projected, and from some guys that jumped way up. I think of the Kings taking Georgios Papagiannis at 13 when most people thought he'd be a second round pick. Karis LeVert went number 20. One of my guys from Michigan went in the first round that no one thought was going to go in the first round. So it was one of those wide open drafts. And I like Prince. Prince, the obvious comparison that Prince keeps getting is DeMarre Carroll. A lot of that is the hair. They're fairly similar players in some senses, but I think the only reason why we're going to see that comp more and more is because of the hair and the fact that the Hawks drafted him. But a big wing could probably play some 3 and 4. 6'8", 6'11" wingspan, 3-and-D guy, can go out and shoot it, play defense, be a long, active, good cutter, that kind of stuff. Very much in that DeMarre mold. And Bembry, actually, DeAndre Bembry, the second of the first round picks, I think has a higher upside of the 2, which is a bit interesting to say, but he's that classic Hawks project in that he doesn't really have a jump shot right now. He's not an awful shooter, but it's not his strength by any means. So Hawks University, as people have been calling it, can sort of get him in, teach him how to shoot like they did with Kent Bazemore and DeMarre Carroll. And if he can do that, man, Bembry's a guy I really, really, really like. He's a good athlete, good passer, does a lot of things well. So if they can fix the jump shot, I like it a lot. The whole thing was they didn't take any big swings. They didn't go for Scalabissier or Deontay Davis, one of those, none of those high upside guys here. So that was a bit shocking to some people that that wanted them to take a big home run look at one of these guys. But they took the safer picks, guys they'll be able to produce sooner rather than later. And that's sort of the Hawks' MO. They like safety. They like guys that that fit their character things. Both guys have high character from everything that's been said about them both. And this is a very Hawksy draft. Without the fact that they moved up, I was expecting some sort of trade somewhere, but sticking where they did, they picked 2 guys that seemed like Hawks players.
With how the league is moving, I thought it was I thought they were good picks. With how the league is moving, just thinking, 3 or so years down the line from now, with how they're advertised coming out of college, being 2 guys that are good on the defensive end, I don't know. Is it fair to think, this could really be a payout in a few years? When you think of like perimeter defense and you think, hey, however, these guys could switch, especially, you think of Prince who could play a little bit of the 4, Bembry. Please correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I can't get the name correct.
That is correct.
Bembry. Woo. All right. He could switch out between the 2 and the 3. I just thought when I saw them get both of them, that's versatility, at least years down the line from now.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've seen that, especially in the finals and late in the playoffs this year. You can see that a lot of the better teams are going with these long, athletic wings more often than not, playing some small ball. Prince, like you mentioned, can play the 4. I think that he'll spend some real time there down the line. Bembry's got versatility, and look, there's been some talk that the Hawks have this like glut or log jam on the wing now, and I don't agree with that. You want as many wings as you can pretty much get with the way the league is moving now. I don't think either one of these moves makes it more likely that Kent Bazemore walks away, and even if he does walk away, I expect the Hawks to try to sign another wing because look, these guys are rookies. Rookies don't play for good playoff teams in year one, and if they do, it's coming down the end of the year. It's very rare that you would see like one rookie, much less 2 rookies in an NBA playoff rotation. And I like these guys, and they're one of their positives is that they're closer to being ready than most guys are at this level. But at the same time, like I don't think Mike Budenholzer wants any part of one of these guys being like a real key, every night rotation player as a rookie. That's just not how that works with a team that's expected to win, 45, 50 games. So take it easy, take the long view. And you can never have too many wings, too much length, too much athleticism in today's game. And, even a guy like Bembry, like there's been some talk that he might even be able to play some point guard. I don't really see that, but he is a nice guy to have as a secondary creator, because that was one of the problems last year on the wing. Guys like Thabo Sefolosha, Kent Bazemore, Kyle Korver, even Tim Hardaway Jr. None of those guys are really facilitators, secondary ball handlers. They're more, obviously pure shooters in Korver, and even the other three guys. Bazemore is good at slashing, good at cutting. He's very athletic, but he's not exactly somebody that you would call a high-end ball handler or a high-end passer. So adding a guy like Bembry who can bring a little bit more of that versatility to the table, a little bit more creation, could be really valuable in a couple of years too.
It's definitely going to be fun to watch in a few years. With Taurean Prince, I do have to ask. So you did mention he's a 3-and-D kind of guy, meaning his shooting. Do you think his shooting will be able to, how do I say this, translate into the NBA game? Because we've seen that with previous draft picks like John Jenkins and who did we pick 2 years ago? Blanking on the name. The guy we traded to Minnesota.
Adrian Payne.
Yeah, Adrian Payne. Thank you.
My guy, Adrian Payne, who I will never live down because I loved Adrian Payne and I was wrong.
Hey, I had Patrick on here. Patrick was talking to me with guys that he loved. Said he thought Payne was a good pick. A lot of people thought Payne was a good pick. It's just
I still do. I just don't. I don't know why he's not good. But anyway, we'll figure that out later. But I was wrong about Adrian Payne. I'm sorry.
I'm wrong about a lot of things. That's why I have to ask people about the draft. No joke, but do you think Taurean Prince, do you think his shooting can translate into the NBA game?
I do. I don't think he's going to be like an awesome lights out shooter.
Yeah.
I think of, the obvious comp is DeMarre Carroll. And by the end of his career in Atlanta, he was a good shooter, not a great shooter. That's kind of what I think for Prince. Like, that's just one of his attributes. I think his best attribute is his length and his athleticism at that position, his versatility to be able to play the four. He's big enough to play the four. He's a great cutter, that kind of stuff. But, I think he's more of that like 35 to 37% three-point shooter. Strongly a real threat when he's open, that kind of guy. Not a knockdown threat, not a 40% guy, but at the same time, like I think he can get a shot off, which is important. I think there's some of his game where he can create his own shot. He was asked to do that a lot at Baylor. He's not exactly a guy who's going to be a dominant scorer in my opinion, but he could be a guy that he can pump fake, put the ball on the floor, and go all the way to the rim. He can pull up and shoot that mid-range game. Like he's got some versatility there, but the shooting I think will play. He shot 36% from three his last year at Baylor, and the year before that he shot 40% from three. Again, those are college three-point shooting numbers, which are often misleading because it's obviously so much shorter. But Prince does have that kind of range and especially in the Hawk system, when they have that reputation for being able to work with guys and have them, spread out their shooting range, that I think Prince is going to be a nice asset as a three-point shooter.
Oh, good to hear. Something to look forward to. And in terms of, I guess, I don't know, hearing how it's a reach. Brad, you've written articles. Everyone has, at least, you read Peachtree Hoops, you see all the articles. Taurean Prince has been linked to the Hawks for months now as a guy that we should consider. And to me, I guess where they took him, the Hawks staff kind of saw him as the guy, like, this is our guy that we want. So I don't know if it was more as a reach, but it was just kind of like, hey, we got the guy that we want. And, they just took the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way on that. I think the whole term reach is interesting especially from more casual fans, because I think they just look around at mock drafts. They see where Prince was going in mock drafts, which is usually, the late teens or into the 20s, and think, well, that guy's supposed to go at 20, or he's supposed to go at 25. And that means he's a reach at 12. there's some of that in there. Like I understand, like a lot of the guys who do mock drafts are smart, especially the ones that I trust. I think, Sam Massini, Chad Ford, those guys, they're not idiots. They know what they're talking about. They have intel around the league. But at the same time, this is a draft that everybody kind of agreed was weak, especially in the middle. Like there's a lot of guys in this draft who I think can be good role players, but there was definitely a line in the sand with. There were definitely some real projects like Scalabissiere, Deontay Davis, even DeJounte Murray, a bunch of these guys who have high upsides who don't really know what they're doing right now. There's a bunch of those guys, and then there was also a bunch of lower ceiling guys like Bembry, like Prince, who are probably going to be role players at the NBA level, but valuable role players. Do I think Prince was the number 12 player in the draft? I really don't. I think personally I would have had him like somewhere in that like 15 to 18 range. But, that's my personal feeling. And look, the Hawks took the guy they wanted at 12. I'm sure they were trying to move around. Like this is a really active front office. There was a lot of talk about, why didn't they wait to take Prince at 21? Look, they could not have known that Prince was going to be there at 21. That's the simplest thinking ever. Like, you can't assume that your guy who you like is going to be there again. You just don't know. Like if they passed at 12 and if he was the highest ranked guy on their board and they said, oh, we'll just wait till 21 and hopefully he's there, that makes no sense. Like he may not have been there. So they took their guy.
Yeah, exactly. And especially how a lot of, I don't know. I've also seen a lot of kind of articles for the Hawks. You guys mentioned that Bembry was also another guy that the Hawks were interested in.
Oh, so, I love Bembry. I love him.
Yeah, so
I absolutely love him.
To me, it seemed like a good draft for us because we got the two guys that we wanted. And for those complaining, here we go. You remember, just remember to hate me on this. We've been complaining about not drafting a wing in the draft for the last couple of years, and we kind of addressed that in this one right here. So,
it's in field. Listen, yeah. Can I rant for a second?
Go ahead. That's what we're here for.
Everybody, it's the same people who are complaining about the Hawks not having good enough wings were mad that they drafted two wings. It's the same people that want to complain about how the team really needs a better wing and they need to upgrade on the wing and why can't we stop LeBron, blah, 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 blah. You take a guy like Taurean Prince who, is that bigger wing. He's immediately the biggest wing on the roster. He's a legit like 6'7" and a half, 6'8" with like 220 pounds, almost a 7-foot wingspan. That's the type of guy you draft to guard these opposing big wings. It's been a major weakness of the team recently, not having that guy with length last year to cover the likes of Paul George and Kevin Durant and obviously LeBron James. Kent Bazemore, God bless Kent Bazemore. I like him a lot. He's about 6'4", and he can't guard those guys. He's just not long enough. So investing in two guys that are long and athletic and good wing prospects, there's nothing wrong with that. And it doesn't mean that, I just think people got caught up in the hype of the mock drafts, and like I just think it's always something. People always want the opposite of what the Hawks do. If they had taken Scalabissiere and didn't address the wing, it would be a lot of screaming about how the Hawks need wings. So it is what it is. But I love the investment only because like that was a glaring weakness, man. In my opinion, that might have been the biggest weakness on the team last year was just not having a single guy who could guard LeBron James. And that doesn't mean that's obviously a lot of pressure on Taurean Prince long term. Like I don't think he's gonna be some sort of a LeBron stopper, but like he at least has the length and the tools to be able to do that kind of stuff in the future. And the Hawks didn't have that. They just don't have it.
Well, it's not even LeBron. Also, just like other guys in the wing would light us up. Like
absolutely, Paul George,
DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan had field day against us. At least I don't know. I could be wrong, but I seem to remember him.
Well, no, I mean, even Thabo. Yeah. Like Thabo's a really, really good defender, but Thabo's not a big physical defender. Yeah, he's one of those guys where like he's a great defender against shooting guards and some small forwards, but he's not exactly this big, strong guy. And Kent Bazemore, again, like he's just not very big. Like he's a shooting guard. Yeah, he did a good job this year playing, in my opinion, out of position at small forward defensively a lot because of his athleticism. He can cover up for some of that length deficiency, but he's just not very big. And it's nice to have an option. I know, and obviously Tim Hardaway Jr. is not going to be able to do that either. So give me two more guys that can present some length and some athleticism on the wing. That's something that this team needed in a big way.
And let's just say, as we move into our next subject, let's just say, God forbid, and I don't want this, Al Horford leaves. This
No.
this leaves us drafting these two kind of leaves us as like, hey, there's something to look forward to in the future if you have Dennis with these two guys.
Yeah,
But
the Horford topic is going to be
okay, so let's go light with the free agency talk real quick before we talk about Horford. My biggest question that I'm kind of wondering, in recent news, everyone, Kevin Durant has apparently given out a list of his teams that he's willing to talk to. Um, Boston's on this list. Brad, maybe I'm missing something here. I don't know. Why wouldn't Durant want to talk to Atlanta as part of the list? And you see other teams on there where it's just kind of like, huh?
yeah. I'm with you. I fired some stuff on Twitter about this. Like, in the interest of full disclosure, like Kevin Durant's not coming to Atlanta. Like
No.
I know that. I mean, people. That's the first response when people whenever I tweet something positive about that potential fit is that somebody wants to tell me that he's not coming, as if I thought he was. And listen, I understand he's not coming. I get it. But as you mentioned, like there's some of these teams on this list, like Boston for one, the Knicks, even the Lakers, Houston. There's some of these teams that are at least, whether they're in the mix or not remains to be seen, but at least in the discussion where I think it's pretty clear that the better basketball situation would be Atlanta compared to some of these teams. And Atlanta's a big market. People like to live in Atlanta. There's a ton of professional athletes that do not play in Atlanta that like to live in Atlanta and still live in Atlanta in the off season. It's a big hub. It's the biggest city in the Southeast. Blah 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 blah. I've kind of ranted on the fact that the NBA does super well in Atlanta TV wise. It's just that the Hawks don't. There's tons of NBA fans in the city that I think are ripe to become Hawks fans if the Hawks ever get that superstar player. Obviously, the talent is really good on the roster right now. I think if Durant came, then keeping Horford would be a slam dunk. So you're talking about Horford, Millsap, and Durant being the best front line in the entire NBA right away. I mean, there's tons of reasons. I've made this argument before. I think it was 2 summers ago when LeBron was a free agent. Sliding LeBron in Atlanta was something that even Zach Lowe talked about as being an incredible basketball fit. I just think this franchise, until it happens, until they make a finals or even God forbid win a title, it's going to be a tough sell on free agents at that level. They just never have never been able to sign a guy at that level. The biggest free agent signing that the Hawks have made in the last dozen years is Paul Millsap, and even then, they got Millsap on a steal of a 2-year deal that nobody could figure out why Paul Millsap signed that contract. It's like Danny Ferry tricked Paul Millsap into signing for 2 years and $19 million. Like it never made sense. So, listen, it's going to be something that we all talk about as Hawks fans. As why is a guy like this not considering the Hawks? But for whatever reason, they can't get in the room, and I think part of that is this ownership group and Steve Koonin and Mike Budenholzer are going to have to get the franchise over the hump as a team that is credible. For the longest time, they had ugly ownership here, and that matters. Ugly front office situations, and that matters too. Like you have to have some sort of stability, face of the franchise to bring these guys in on that LeBron Durant level, and they just never had that. And until they can get at least a meeting with a guy like Durant, then there's not a lot of reason to be optimistic that it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I do want to make a correction for you, Brad.
Do that.
Okay, so you talk about best free agent that we got. Man, I don't know how you could not include superstar Tracy McGrady. That is easily.
That did happen. That is a good point. Tracy McGrady signed with the Atlanta Hawks. That happened.
That is something I joke with people. Say, hey, the biggest free agent we've gotten is Tracy McGrady.
That is factual. Listen, by name only, T-Mac. T-Mac was the best player in the world for about a year and a half. So that it just wasn't the year and a half that he was here.
Yeah. I don't know, man. We got Grant Hill in the front office. Maybe he can, go work his magic or something. But so with free agency, I kind of felt the exact same way you do with Durant and especially Boston. Not especially Boston. It's just kind of like I don't know. it's like, hey, Durant, I know you're in a time frame for, when to compete, when to contend and all that. But if you give us a couple years, hopefully the draft picks that we have, well, I don't know.
Listen, there's no argument right now. Listen, if you put Kevin Durant on the Hawks, or you put Kevin Durant on the Celtics, the Hawks are better. The Hawks were much better than the Celtics this last year, and it's the same roster.
Yeah,
It doesn't make any sense. Like, I get it. I get it because Boston's got more history. They have a more famous coach. I won't say that he's a better coach, although Stevens is very good. I don't think we know that he's better than Budenholzer, but Boston's got more history. But the market's not any bigger. Boston's not any bigger than Atlanta market-wise.
no.
I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand how Boston's like some sort of slam dunk, option to get a meeting with Kevin Durant, but Atlanta can't get one. It doesn't make any sense to me.
The only thing I hold on to is that Hawks information never leaks.
I said this on Twitter. Like, I was holding out hope that, like, listen, maybe the Hawks had the secret meeting and they just won't leak it.
I don't know. I'm with you. It's more about, I don't think Durant's coming here, especially with everything that's available, especially now how
he's not coming here.
How Oklahoma City looks, having made that trade. It's just the fact that there's other teams ahead of us on this list.
The Knicks,
Yeah, the Knicks.
I know New York is New York, and that matters. Like, that's the biggest market in the country and in this hemisphere. But at the same time, like,
the Knicks,
you cannot tell me that it's a better basketball situation for Kevin in New York. That's absolute madness.
Yeah, the Lakers as well.
The Lakers at least are so young. But listen, guys like Kevin Durant don't want to play with young guys. They want to play with established guys. I know the Lakers have young talent, but young talent is not what lures guys back on free agency. They want to play with their people on their level of superstardom. And that doesn't happen with the Lakers right now. I'm sorry, Brandon Ingram and D'Angelo Russell, but Kevin Durant does not want to go play with you. Not now.
Well, that's also because of you say that about Boston. You could say that about Boston. It's just kind of like, yes, I'm sure Durant wants to go play with you guys in your 30 shooting guards that they probably have on our team. But you know what? I have all the salt. I have all of the anger. Not even
sodium.
Yes, we'll say that. We'll say that just because I don't even think he's coming here. It's just the point that we're not on the list. Even the Hawks. # even the Hawks. So let's talk about more pressing concerns in free agency. Where do you stand on the Al Horford side? Do you want him back, or are you wanting him to go?
I've been saying this the whole time. The biggest question with Al Horford and his free agency is, what does this ownership group want? If this Hawks ownership group wants to win a championship and doesn't care about anything else, you could pretty easily argue that they shouldn't sign Al and they should just rebuild right now. I don't think that's going to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
I think that every ownership group, especially a new owner, and especially this point has to be made that the head coach right now is also the principal player personnel person. Mike Budenholzer, I cannot fathom him wanting to tear it down. Every time you have a head coach that's in charge of player personnel, they don't want to rebuild because they want to win. They're coaches. They want to coach a team that's going to win more often than it loses.
That's also part of their resume, wins and losses.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes on both of their resumes, but I could pretty easily form an argument to you that the best thing for the Hawks to win a championship and nothing else is to rebuild right now. Let Al go, maybe even trade Paul Millsap, try to get assets and tear it down from the ground up in a hurry. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think this ownership group values attendance. I think it values interest. This fan base has not been the best one at showing up for a bad product in recent years. Obviously, the Hawks have been pretty good for a long while now, but before that, when it was ugly, they couldn't get anybody to come to games. The TV ratings were in the toilet. I think there's a real fear that everything that Steve Koonin has done to bring added attention from the fan base would evaporate in a hurry if they suddenly were bad for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think that the most likely scenario with that on the table is that they bring Al back. I mean, I would prefer it, obviously, to not take a full 5-year max, because I think that fifth year, when Al is 34, 35 years old, probably won't be worth the amount of money that he's paid in that last year. But look, Al Horford's a max player in this league. I don't care what people think about Al and some of his shortcomings about how he's not this big superstar scorer or big, huge rebounder now. A lot of that is scheme, in my opinion. Al's one of the top, 25, 30 players in the NBA, and that's a max player. So, he's worth it. He's worth a max for sure, especially in those first 3 or 4 years. And look, if this is a good team, if they want to stay a good team, the easiest way to do that is to just re-sign Al Horford, pay him the most money that anybody else can pay him, bring him back. And I think Al likes it in Atlanta. I think he's going to look around because he should. I mean, he's earned that right. He was just like Jeff. Al's been on a discount for the last 4 or 5 years. He signed a 5-year, $60 million contract. At $12 million a year is a lot of money for anybody, like any regular human being. But Al's been wildly underpaid for about 3 or 4 years now. So he should go look around, see what's out there for him. But unless he wants to go to Golden State, I think the only other place that he should consider doing is Golden State, because obviously they become the favorite right away, and Al wants to win. But aside from that, stay in Atlanta, make the most money you can make, and be the best player or second best player, depending on how you think about Paul Millsap. And the Hawks will be good, right? The Hawks will be good for the next couple of years for sure. Just having Horford and Millsap makes you a good team in the Eastern Conference, and there's a lot of value in
that. If he leaves us, especially if he goes to Golden State, I will cry.
Well, listen, I'm going to let you talk for sure, but if Horford leaves, there on his own will, if he goes to Golden State, or if he can find a way to finagle himself into Oklahoma City or San Antonio in search of a title, I'm going to argue. I'm calling my shot right now. I'm going to argue that the Hawks should rebuild right then and there. I think they should immediately pivot into a rebuild if Al leaves. Just because I don't think this team, like as constructed, there's not really the free agency market to be good next year if Al leaves. I mean, short of signing a guy like Hassan Whiteside, which would not be a Hawks move at all. Whiteside's got some off-court concerns, and the Hawks really don't like guys with off-court concerns. Short of something like that, there really isn't a move to keep the Hawks in that 45-plus win range if Horford walks, and that means it's time to rebuild.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Just because the team would be so, it would be questionable of how the team would get better if Horford leaves, in my opinion, just because you would have Millsap, but then you have Millsap on. How long is his contract? Is he here for another year?
Paul's got 1 more year and then a player option. And spoiler alert, if Paul is as good as he's been the last 2 years, he's not picking up that player option.
Yeah,
so really, it's probably an expiring contract on Paul this year.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I kind of feel that that's what the Hawks should do if Horford leaves, and I don't know. Something I've been arguing, saying is a reason to keep Horford also is if, for whatever reason they realize they want to go full rebuild in a couple of years or whatever, you can always use Horford as a asset to other teams and be like, hey, we have one of the top, 5 centers in the league. What do you want to pay for us for those teams that feel, they would need him to get over the hump, or I don't know. Brad, so let me move on to the last part of free agency real quick. Just ask, who are some targets, or what position do you think the Hawks are going to target?
A lot of it will come down to what happened with Kent Bazemore, I think. I'm not assuming Al Horford will be back, but I think it's more likely than not. So we will, for the purposes of this discussion, I'll assume that Al comes back. If he does, I think obviously the biggest decision comes on Bazemore. Wes Wilcox had some pretty illuminating things to say about how Kent was a priority. I wrote about that on Peachtree Hoops the night of the draft. So you can read those comments on the site. But the Hawks are going to make every effort to keep Bazemore. If they do that, that's going to probably be the majority of their big splash free agency money, which leaves the biggest hole if Bazemore were to return would be at point guard, backup point guard. They're going to have to sign a backup point guard, probably 2, at least 1 veteran, in my opinion, to back up Dennis, provide some stability there. And then, in my opinion, you need 3 just for the emergency factor. They could even invest in a young guy like a D League-ish player, or like somebody they signed from summer league as their 15th man / 3rd point guard. But the obvious hole right now is backup point guard. Unfortunately, there aren't a ton of guys on the market that are any good at point guard this year. That was part of the reference earlier about Jeremy Lin getting a ton of money, is that Jeremy Lin's one of the better point guards in the market this year. So that's going to be something to look for. For me, I probably wouldn't sign Kent Bazemore just because of the fact that I think he's going to get a lot of money. Hawks fans are going to be surprised by the numbers they see associated with Kent Bazemore. I think he's going to get somewhere in that $17 to $19 million a year range. That sounds like a lot of money because it is. I think the best name on the market, aside from Kevin Durant, obviously, would be a guy like Nick Batum. I think he'd be an awesome fit here. It's just that the problem is that the Hawks would probably have to give him the max and hope that Charlotte doesn't give him more than that, which I think they might just do. And the other big wing name is the dreaded Harrison Barnes, which we've all talked about a lot. I would not go anywhere near. I would not go anywhere near Harrison Barnes on a max contract, which is probably what it takes to get him, given that he's a restricted free agent. So I think Bazemore, I've sort of shifted into thinking that he's probably going to be back, given what the front office has said. And if all that happens, you're looking at maybe one more backup big man if they don't trust Thiago Splitter's health, and if they do, the primary spot will be backup point guard. And there aren't that many guys in the market. You're looking at like Mario Chalmers. Maybe Jeremy Lin if they want to pay lots and lots of money for Jeremy Lin. There's a few other guys. I'm going to be writing about that for either Monday or Tuesday on the site, so I don't want to give everything away there. But backup point guard is the one obvious glaring hole right now.
With Jeremy Lin, I'm trying to think how I would evaluate this. I wonder if a lot of the draw for Jeremy Lin would also be due to like having his name on the team. And because he was a famous player, still is, from those years in New York, all those years ago. So I wonder if teams would consider signing him. Not only would give him the money because they're thinking, hey, we'll get some sort of financial backing with his name.
Oh, that definitely does matter. He would sell some tickets in Atlanta. I've having been there for almost every home game in the last 4 years. There's usually a bump when Jeremy Lin's in town. Even when he's coming in with the Hornets last year, there was some Jeremy Lin fans around for sure. But look, that's just one name. Some of these other names, I'm looking at the list now of potential free agents in the backup point guard market. You got Brandon Jennings. You got Matthew Dellavedova, which would be interesting for a number of reasons.
Oh, boy.
Mario Chalmers. You got Ty Lawson. Jarrett Jack is available. Langston Galloway is available. Shane Larkin. Ish Smith. Like, these are the names you're talking about. It's not going to be a terribly impressive addition.
Sessions, things like
that.
It's
Ramon. Yeah, exactly. That's that kind of level of player. Listen, like, I think the Hawks have been spoiled having Dennis as a backup point guard at least the last 2 years. He's been one of the better backups in the league, and that's a nice thing to have. But most teams in the NBA are running out a much more average backup point guard in that Norris Cole mode than what the Hawks have had recently. I think that's probably what's going to happen this year. You're going to see more minutes from Dennis. Dennis is probably going to be playing in that low 30 range, maybe up somewhere up to like 33, 34 minutes a game, which means you got to fill 15 minutes a game with some combination of backup point guard, and it's going to be a veteran that isn't going to excite anybody, is my guess.
All right, so you hear that, Hawks fans. Just go back to how you mentally felt when watching Jeremy Pargo.
Pargo, Anthony Johnson. I think back to Tyronn Lue, the great world championship winning head coach. Tyronn Lue was at one point a strong backup for the Hawks. So
I actually really liked Anthony Johnson when he was here for us.
Listen, there was when Mike Bibby came, it was like the end of the world because the Hawks hadn't had a point guard in so long that Mike Bibby was like basically like having Chris Paul around. It was like having this like godsend of a point guard when Mike Bibby came. That's where we were for the longest time.
That is kind of also how go back to and I will only reference this for about 10 seconds, but going back to when Jeff Teague started playing for us, you just saw the distinct difference. I remember when we got Kirk Heinrich in that trade, and he was playing point guard for us after Mike Bibby. It was just, I don't know. You remember watching the years of Anthony Johnson, Tyronn Lue, Speedy Claxton,
Craig, the legend.
Oh yeah, having to gut out years of AC Law. It's just like when we got Bibby and then Kirk, it was just kind of like, oh my goodness, it's just night and day of what we were getting from the point guard position.
Listen, I did not expect to hear the name of AC Law today. So I'm shout out to AC Law. I'm proud of you for using that reference because that now reminds me that things were used to be a lot darker at point guard.
Salim Stoudemire as
Oh,
well.
I can't believe he wasn't good. I can't believe Salim Stoudemire wasn't better than he was. But anyway, we'll stay on the rails for now.
Yeah. So yes, guys, point guard is, whoo boy, it's going to be interesting to watch. Yeah. So Britain, I'm with you. We still have two rookies on the wing now. We just drafted them. I don't expect them to be starters. I don't really expect them to play much
Oh,
next
will.
year.
Let me say this right now. They will not be starters. Neither of them was going to start. If you're penciling in these guys as starting players, that's not going to happen in year one. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Oh boy, point guard. All right, we got some good stuff. Looking at my watch, we have been on a while. Anything else you want to talk about for free agency before I move on to our next and final kind of session, real quick?
No, just again, I think it's important for fans to just realize that the salary cap's going up and contracts are not what they used to be. So when you see a guy like Kent Bazemore sign for $18 million a year, it's not really an overpay. That's kind of what these guys are going to make. I think think about it. And this, I've heard this said a couple of places, including like Nate Duncan's podcast. I think $15 million a year is like your average starter in the NBA right now, which used to be the max contract essentially. And now it's basically the average starter. So like, just factor that in. Don't panic when you see guys sign for $10 million. That's not very good because that's what guys are going to sign for now. That's just the reality of it.
Oh boy, Kent Bazemore at that much.
I'm with you, but that's the new reality.
Yeah. So we have move into my little final segment real quick. We have a few questions that were sent to us, recently tweeted to me. James, are you into the Euro Soccer League right now, Brad?
I'm not a big soccer guy. I think I'm the only one that's not a big soccer guy at this point. But I've been following it. I know who's winning and stuff, but I'm not the biggest soccer guy.
So I want to say James because I don't have Matt on with us. Matt is the huge soccer guy that I've had on for a couple of podcasts, giving his predictions for the Euro Championship. He asks me England or Iceland. James, I don't know what to tell you for this. England, I guess, because I don't know. I think they've been somehow winning recently. But let me go on to a question I want to say you can ask. We have Malone at Planet Malone 57. He asks, what do you think the time frame for Tavares to be productive?
Ooh, we were talking about a group of us were talking about this on Thursday night at the draft party. I think if Eddie's not in the rotation by the end of this year, it's time to panic on Eddie. And by that, I mean that he may not just be very good. I've seen Eddie up close a few times, the last two summer leagues, and obviously when he played at times this year. Obviously, his defense is appealing because of the size, and he's a good instinctive shot blocker. But on offense, he really is not a factor at all right now at the NBA level. And aside from shot blocking, he's got some real limitations defensively too. He doesn't really move. He moves well for his size, given how massive he is. But that doesn't mean that he's able to switch out on point guards and pick and roll, that kind of stuff. So I think, part of it is that it's just not a great setup for Eddie in Atlanta right now because you have Thiago Splitter presumably back. I'm assuming Horford's back. I think Mike Muscala is better than Eddie right now. For as much as people don't like Muscala, I think he's a safer play right now than Eddie is in an NBA game. So getting him time in Atlanta right now is a challenge in itself. This is a big summer for Eddie. I'm assuming he'll be at Summer League. We'll be able to see if he's matured a little bit, gotten any sharper with his skills. But I think the time is almost running out a little bit. He's probably a little bit older than you think, and the Hawks don't have that much more team control over him in a contract situation. So, Eddie's sort of been an overrated asset in my opinion since he came over. I like him as a prospect, but it's more as a long-term role player than anything else. And people are probably a little bit overexcited about Eddie right now for what he actually is. So by the end of this year, he's not regularly playing and contributing. I think it might be time to worry about his long-term future in Atlanta.
All right. Well, there you have it, Malone. Sam J. Hodge at Sam underscore J underscore Hodge. He's asking me, back to the rookies that we drafted. Which rookie do you feel is going to step up most this season? And which one do you think will be more of a long term investment?
Ooh, I think as far as playing time this year, I think Prince is a safer bet to play more. I think a lot of that is that he can play the four. Um, Mike Scott is still on the roster right now, which is it's a very complicated issue given his legal stuff and the fact that he has there's a team option on Mike. So the Hawks could move on from Mike if they need to clear some money out. But if especially if Mike's not there, I think Prince would play even more, given the fact that he can play the four. He's obviously, as we talked about a little bit earlier, able to be versatile in that sense, and his shooting is better than Memory's right now also. So I think his ceiling is a little bit lower than Memory's in my opinion, but his floor is a little bit higher. So I think he's a safer bet to play right away. I'll go with Memory long term because of the fact that his ball handling is so good, his passing is so good. That if the Hawks can fix his jump shot and make him into a quality three-point shooter at the NBA level, I think he's a starter long term. And I'm not convinced that Prince is a starter. And if he is, I think he'll be more of a average to below average starter. There's nothing wrong with that. You need rotation guys. But Prince is more ready to go right now, and Bembry's got the higher ceiling in my opinion.
All right. And I guess that kind of answers his follow-up question, which is kind of like, do you think any of them will be kind of like a bust?
No, I don't. I think both these guys are going to be NBA players. They'll be NBA rotation players in a couple of years. I don't see the downside that I did with a guy like John Jenkins we talked about earlier, where Jenkins, for as much as he could shoot, that was all he could do, and because of the defensive issues that he had, there was that downside. Adrian Payne, his downside was that he was already so old, and it took him so long at Michigan State to develop. These guys they're both older prospects, but they both were productive for basically their entire college career, which I think if you look at some of the advanced stat translations, guys that really peak as seniors, it's almost like a worry project because of the fact that they weren't good enough before that to play. That's probably them using their age more than anything to get better and start outperforming their college competition. Both Prince and Memory were both pretty good throughout their college career, and I think they're pretty safe bets to be in NBA rotations, even if their ceiling isn't as high as some of these other guys.
All right. That wraps it up for us, guys. Brad, thank you for answering the questions. Thank you for coming on and talking all things draft and giving the real quick eulogy to Jeff Teague. I do have to ask you though, since we are at this point in the show, Independence Day 2.
Oh,
What's up with that, man?
I haven't seen it yet. I am going to see it. I'm excited about seeing it. I expect it to be terrible, to be honest. I expect it to be bad. The first one is legendary. I don't care what anyone says, including you. Independence Day is a classic.
Okay.
Independence Day 2 is probably going to be terrible. The reviews have been terrible, but I don't care. I will not be swayed. I'll go see it, and I'll probably enjoy the heck out of it, even if it's bad.
First Independence Day. Here's my defense on it. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's bad. It's just I look at it years later and I'm kind of like, ooh, we really did save the world by hooking our MacBook Pro up to an alien ship. But
yes, there's some stuff wrong with it, but it's fine. You take it for what it is. It's 20 years old. It is what it is. It was a classic in its time. Will Smith, young Will Smith, just be out there being Will Smith, just doing Will Smith stuff. It's great. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, there's some stuff in the new movie. No, I'll admit, I enjoyed the first one. I enjoyed watching it. Every aspect, how threatening the aliens are. I kind of like that they're let me say I kind of like the bringing some of the characters back, but just you leave out Will Smith out of this. I don't know how to feel about that, man.
I don't think Will was available. Well,
oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure they asked him, but I don't think he wants really fired up to go back and do it again. I could be wrong about that, but I can't imagine that they didn't call him, considering calling Will Smith is basically ensuring that your movie is going to make money, and I don't think they did that.
Yeah, and I feel because he's also doing. I didn't know how the scheduling was because I know he's coming out with that other movie that he's in later this year.
Suicide Squad, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Suicide Squad. That and how he came out with Concussion recently. So I don't know if his schedule was busy or if he was just kind of like, I need to be taken more seriously now. I'm done with. I think
doubt.
After Earth was the last thing where he was like, "That's it."
Lord have
But,
mercy. Yes.
yeah. I don't know, man. Independence Day too. I'm gonna have to see that. Boy, I hope it doesn't make me look at Independence Day 1 and say, you know what? Maybe I was wrong about a couple things. But
yep, I understand.
we will see. Brad, thank you for coming on. Is there a place where the people can reach to listen to you, talk to you, whatever?
First of all, it's my pleasure, sir. Second of all, just Twitter is probably the best place for me at BT Rolling on Twitter, or just find me at Peachtree Hoops, man. Chris and I and Harry and Jason are kind of usually the guys writing most of the content, and I'm at games, so come see me at games if you want. I've met a bunch of people a bunch of our readers have come to games and found me on press row and said what's up, and I appreciate that always. Come say what's up. Obviously, the season's not for a couple more months now, but I'll be around. I'm always around and happy to answer or talk Hawks always.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Had a fun episode. Man, let's head into the off season with some good vibes, guys. Well, excuse me, free agency with some good vibes. Thank you for your questions, guys, and we will see you next time. Peace.